Hi there, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be trying to paint a portrait using just one tube of paint. I've done something similar to this before, but I used a warm blue and a cool blue to try and create a portrait. Today I want to try and use just one tube of paint and actually get some kind of depth and see if you can get enough depth using just one colour. I'm using Moonglow by Daniel Smith. It's a really unique shade. It's made up of green, red and blue, so I'm hoping the paint will kind of separate on the paper and it will look really kind of unique. Let's get going. The reference photo that I'm using is from Pixabay. I'm using it quite loosely. I like the composition of it, but unfortunately when it comes to royalty-free websites, the photos usually just, I don't know, they aren't very good. They look very posed and unnatural. I'm not really a fan of that. So I tried to put my own spin on it a little bit. I'm not sure if that really worked at all. But anyway, when I started painting, I actually used wet on dry. I decided to do this because I felt like if the paint had separated and you could really see like the green and the red, which is what I've had previously with the Moonglow shade because it's green, red and blue pigment. Often granulating colours can just look very muddy for skin tones, and often really with skin tones you want it to be quite smooth, so I decided to do that. I really haven't decided whether I prefer wet on wet or wet on dry for the skin tone. I feel like every time I paint I do something different. I'm like trying out different stuff every time. Unfortunately, because the photo was really quite posed and it's kind of overhead, there wasn't really many shadows, and I feel like that was part of the problem with this one, that I kind of had to make up where the shadows would be, unfortunately, and that didn't really work. I have this problem when I paint where I really easily overwork my projects because I just don't know when to stop, and when I use watercolour and gouache and it's really good to layer, and I just automatically blend everything together, and you can see in this that there's certain areas where I should have just left the lines and left them as kind of harsh lines and just gone over, but I blended absolutely everything and it just did not work very well. The eyes, I do quite like the eyes, but I don't think that they match the face. I think the eyes, I do like how they turned out, but I think they're a little bit too kind of animated, and I don't think the size was correct for the face. I know that I like doing quite big eyes, so that's something that I have been doing, but I just don't think it really works for this particular one. I also think the mouth isn't in the correct place. You can kind of see that I was following the sketch, but the sketch wasn't very accurate on this one. This painting I did actually do quite a few months ago now, so I don't know if I would have improved since then, but I feel like definitely my sketching abilities have improved since then. I've done the 100 heads challenge since this video, and I've also been doing a lot of sketching in my messy sketchbook, which is like my very first pencil sketchbook. So I feel like if I was going to do at least the sketch again, I do think the sketch would definitely look different. I really like the eyebrows on this one though, I must admit. Sometimes I go overboard on eyebrows, and even if I'm following a reference where they have like really light small eyebrows, I will just go overboard and do what I like, because I don't know, I think I like really big eyebrows, and also I just shape them so much and they just end up really big, so I definitely don't keep it accurate. As far as putting my own style onto this piece, I think the things where I kind of influenced it was the face shape, which I don't think was completely accurate. The eyes I think are definitely a bit big and a little bit more animated. It's definitely not like a realistic style at all. I think they're the main areas where I try to put my own style and influence on it, and I'm not sure it really worked in this instance. I think because I'm still trying to sort of find my art style, I keep trying to like pop different aspects in that I like, and just, yeah, it doesn't really work. I feel like if you have a set art style it makes sense, but if you don't, it's just kind of a little bit odd, and that's kind of how I feel. I also think the eyes, going in with like how I sort of like the eyes but I don't think they match the face. I think the eye bags are a little bit too dark. They don't look like they were supposed to look, and that's unfortunate. I think the nose is kind of cute though. I'm getting a little bit better at noses, but noses are so difficult. The real big thing, which you'll see now, is I didn't think the hair would take as long as it took. The hair took a long while. Usually I would like to be able to just splash a load of colour on and that be it. But I'm also aware that sometimes you need to do individual hairs. Like, I now got my Klinsky liner and added in some eyebrow hairs. And I do often do this because I feel like it really makes the eyebrows look a bit better. And I do think, to be honest, the eyebrows are probably the best part of this face. Especially that right eyebrow, like, ooh, that is good. But the left eyebrow, whenever I do like a 3/4 or like a slightly tilted face, the eyebrow that's closest to the side that you're leaning towards, if you know what I mean, I always do it wrong. I think it's just not high enough. The arch isn't high enough. I just have problems with eyebrows. I usually have one that I love and one that doesn't go well. And in this case, it's the right one that looks really good. I thought that using the liner brush to do the individual hairs on the head would be a good idea, and I was wrong. It was not a good idea. You would not believe how much of this footage I had to crop out because it was literally half an hour of me doing individual hairs, maybe even more. But eventually we got there. Overall, I do like how this piece has turned out, but I do think there's actually quite a few negatives with it. This was the very first one that I did, and you can see by using a cool and a warm shade, I was able to get a lot more deeper shadows. I just don't think that there was very much contrast. Compared to this one, the shadows are deeper, there is more contrast. I wouldn't paint it like this nowadays, I would do this one differently, but I don't think this was as much of an improvement as I would have liked. I'm also really quite disappointed by how the paint reacted. Being Daniel Smith and being made up of 3 pigments, I thought that there would be different separation in the colour, but honestly, it just looks like a purple grey. I still think it's a nice shade, and I do think it's a lovely colour to use for shadows. Well, that was a really interesting experiment, but I don't think I'll be doing it again. You definitely need a cool and a warm shade for portraits. However, I did find it a lot easier to add the highlights and shadows because you're not focused on which colour you should be adding if you're literally using one. So honestly, this might be really good if you're a beginner, just using the one shade. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, I would love if you could pop down below what your favourite colour is. I think it's just so interesting to hear what everyone else likes. I would also love if you could like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you next time. Bye bye.